Welcome to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. Brought to you by Elite Consulting Partners, it's the only podcast offering unfiltered guidance and direct advice for all things concerning financial advisors, RIAs, and the practitioners in the wealth management business. Learn more and subscribe today at eliteconsultingpartners.com/podcast. And now, here's your host, Frank LaRosa.
Hey everybody, welcome to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. I'm your host, Frank LaRosa. This is another hot mic moment. I'm just doing a follow-up conversation and discussion. I've been getting a lot of calls talking about the whole Commonwealth LPL thing and the recent announcement that the SEC, they basically, the perception is that Commonwealth won and they got the $90 million fine dismissed. And if you read the information and you read all the articles, it hasn't been dismissed, okay? It was a reprieve from the $90 million penalty and being sent down to the lower court because the SEC erred in applying a summary judgment against Commonwealth without it going to a jury. And then there were some miscalculations on how they came up with the penalties, the sort of the disgorgement, and then the interest that goes along with that since I guess, they've been fighting this thing since 2019. And so I think that people are under a false impression that this is over, right? So why would Commonwealth sell to LPL if it wasn't because they had to pay the SEC $90 million? They're going to pay something. And just let me just disclose, put a disclaimer on this thing. I have no inside information. I'm not an attorney. This is my own opinion based on what I'm reading. I've been doing this for 30 years. And if you have to read these things carefully to understand what's actually going on, not what you think is going on, right? Meaning that there's a big difference between reprieve and dismissal, right? If it was dismissed, hey, congratulations, the SEC got it wrong, Commonwealth is free and clear, right? It wasn't dismissed. It's a reprieve, which means a postponement, sent back down to the lower court to basically redo the calculations using the right math, which would then, they're still going to apply interest and they're still going to apply penalties, just like a lot of other firms have paid some pretty big numbers, right? Commonwealth is another one. Cambridge also paid a large fine, and several others have paid these fines. But I just think that people are out here thinking that this is going to be going away. I've been doing this a long time, and if you've ever gone through any, even if it got dismissed, right? They've been fighting this thing since 2019. So think about the amount of legal expense that they've had to incur to fight this thing, which would be enormous. And that in and of itself could put a firm in serious, in a serious position, especially when you look at the economic model that Commonwealth has and the aggressive payouts that they give to their advisors. Their margins are very, very, very thin, right? And so, that could definitely be a reason why they sort of decided to do what they're doing. Again, I don't have any inside baseball on this. I don't know any of the principals. I haven't had any of those conversations. I'm just sort of calling the shots as I see them. Doesn't mean I'm right. But I do think, though, I've gotten a lot of phone calls from people commenting that, wow, did you see that Commonwealth won their lawsuit? They didn't win their lawsuit. They simply got a reprieve. And I think that you need to read between the lines. I would tell you that the SEC is not done with this thing. There is zero chance they walk away and say, you know what, never mind. We're not going to continue to go after them. They've been able to make a case as to why Commonwealth did things not the way the SEC wanted to do them, right? Which doesn't mean that's right either. In my opinion, that whole thing was essentially a shakedown by the SEC to go after these broker-dealers for money. And so, I applaud Commonwealth for fighting back for sure. But it's almost like you're going to win. You lose even when you win. And I wanted to get on here today just to take a few minutes and just talk about this article that just came out, right? I was down in Florida when it happened, and I was like, well, that was interesting, and it sort of got me thinking about why would Commonwealth sell, right? Because that's the big question. Hey, if they won, why are they selling? Because they probably still know something's coming, and it's got a lot of zeros on it. This is probably a good opportunity for them to hit the bid. We have a saying in our business, it's not about the money, but it's about the money. And I'm not going to get into what they're talking about in terms of how they're pitching this to the Commonwealth advisors. I think everyone has a different opinion about that. I think that I will say this. When I was part of Smith Barney and we were bought out by Morgan Stanley, we were told very similar things about the name and our brand, Smith Barney's culture and brand and all of that stuff, that it was not going away, and Smith Barney wasn't going away. It was going to be Morgan Stanley Smith Barney, and then it became sort of Smith Barney sort of disappeared, right? And I was in meetings where some of the folks at Morgan Stanley senior leadership that took us over told my advisors in our branch, the name wasn't going away. And then 2 days later, when we were as directors at a meeting with just the directors, they point blank said the name was going away. So, I think that I think they'll have good intentions, but the reality is LPL has a big name, and it's going to be very interesting to see how they bend LPL to Commonwealth's whim in terms of culture. That's very hard to do. LPL has its own distinct culture, and I'm not saying it's bad, but it's just different than Commonwealth's. And, we've worked with a lot of advisors in the past that have been looking at both firms from, it doesn't matter where they come from, but they looked at both firms. And a lot of them, for a very similar reason, ended up choosing, I shouldn't say a lot, several of them ended up choosing Commonwealth over LPL, at not necessarily for the money. They went there for lower money. They went there for culture. They went there for certain types of things that they felt that Commonwealth had. Whether or not LPL is going to be able to deliver on those things, it's too soon to tell. So we'll see what happens. But I thought I'd just get on this call. It's almost 7 o'clock on a Friday night, but I thought it was important because I probably got no less than 7 or 8 calls today talking about this, and what was the impact, and why do you think that they did what they did if they essentially won the case, right? That's what I kept getting. Hey, if they won the case, why did they sell, right? Because they didn't win the case. That's why. And again, and I'm not saying that's exactly the reason why they sold. So don't take that out of context. All I'm saying was it would be shocking if that didn't put an immense amount of pressure on the principals who did a wonderful job building a great company over the 45 years or so. If that really sort of put a lot of pressure on them to sort of call it a day, right? In terms of what they were dealing with, right? I've worked with clients that run very successful RIAs, and they go through an SEC audit for several years, and at the end of the audit, they're done. They're like, I'm never doing that again. That cost me a fortune, stress, all of those things. I'm never going to do that again. I'm going to not necessarily retire, but I'm going to roll up into a much larger entity where I, as the principal, don't have to deal with that stuff anymore, right? That's the fact of life. That's what happens. It would not surprise me if that was part of the reason why this happened. And folks are leaving. I'm still here doing a podcast because I think it's important that we deliver this message. I appreciate everybody listening to my podcast, and it's my, I don't know if it's a calling, but to call balls and strikes as I see them. So I would say I would call this one a foul ball. How about that? Anyway, with that said, if you have any questions, have any comments, feel free to leave a message. You can DM me at franklarosa.elite on my Instagram account. You can obviously shoot me an email at frank@eliteconsultingpartners.com. And if you have any other questions, I'd love to talk to you. You're free to just give me a call, 856-316-4651. Thanks a lot, and have a great weekend.
Thanks for listening to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. If you're looking for more advice or solutions on any topics in the financial services industry, or you just want to subscribe to our podcast, head on over to eliteconsultingpartners.com/podcasts.